Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to Reality Bytes. Now, regular followers of Nexthink will have observed that we do about once a year at least once a year, put out some original research. And we've done, I think, many interesting surveys and reports during my 5 years at the organization. A lot of state of the industry studies on the impact of IT interruptions and such like. We just last week, however, we released what I sincerely feel is our most significant piece of external research that we've yet commissioned, and I'm going to speak a little bit about what was behind it. So the report is called "The Death and Rebirth of the Service Desk: How AI and Automation Are Reshaping IT and Enterprise Productivity." And the study was carried out by Vance and Bourne, a hugely respected third-party, very objective research organization we've worked with consistently in the past, not only in doing sort of this kind of thought leadership, but also in our own internal market research. So we really do trust and value their sort of authenticity and objectivity. And we went to them with an interesting question. We've heard here and there, internally and externally, rumors of what you might call the death of the service desk going back a few years now. And we know that what some people might call the death of the service desk, other people might call the rebirth of the service desk, the reimagining of the service desk. But we're also very conscious that a lot of our listeners, a lot of Nexthink customers, a lot of people we know in the industry actually currently work in the service desk. And we appreciate the prospect of significant change in your industry and your career could be a source of stress or insecurity. So we didn't want to sort of amplify a message that might sound alarming, shall we say. But we were extremely interested in what the people who work in the service desk, who work in EUC, managers and frontline staff, actually think is going to happen in their careers over the next few years. So using Vance and Bourne, we went and asked over 1,000 people. And we asked them outright, is the service desk going to die? Is the service desk going to change? What do you think it should be called? What are your expectations around the future of your career? What are you doing now to future-proof your career? What is your team investing in? And what is the general direction of travel? And I have to say, I've never seen such emphatic or indeed interesting responses from any kind of survey that I've been involved in the course of my career before. We were getting 70s, 80s, 90s in terms of the sort of percentiles of which the responses were giving us. Really emphatic responses, and they ranged from both an expectation of really significant change, particularly in the area of the service desk, to genuine optimism and excitement about what this means for people's career, what it means for the capacity of EUC to change, to keep up with the changing digital workplace, to continue to provide value to their colleagues in their organizations, and to have a sort of interesting and challenging work life, I think, for years to come. So we're really proud of the report. And I've given an outline of it, but we actually have two regular panelists on Reality Bytes. Both Sean and Megan were intrinsically involved in the conception and execution of the report. Megan was unable to be here with us for this recording today, sadly, but a shout out to Megan for her involvement in it. But Sean, report author, among other things, is here with us. And Sean, I kind of stole your thunder a little bit in sketching out the background of the report and the data. Sorry about that. But I wonder if you could just maybe begin and kick us off with giving us an overview of some of the main highlights and what stood out to you.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll definitely, just to echo what you said, this was a survey carried out with Vance and Bourne. We've worked with them over the past couple of years. They have a great reputation. And we went across 1,000 respondents from 4 major markets: the US, the UK, Germany, and France. And they were split roughly 28% frontline IT workers, 72% service management leaders. And yeah, the results, the main highlights from the report, the first kind of narrative or theme that came through quite strongly is that it is indeed evolving the service desk more towards experience. And like you alluded to, a lot of the scores that came back were in the high 90s, where a lot of people were agreeing that that's the direction in the next couple of years. One thing I liked about it too was folks in the respondents highlighted certain tactics and strategies that they think are going to be important in the coming years. One being proactivity, the other being self-service, and AI and automation. And then likewise, from the survey towards the end, they also voice their concerns like roadblocks and obstacles in the way with certain technologies and even those strategies themselves. So what we decided to do is taking all of that, we try to button up the survey at the end by offering our own customer stories and how they've dealt with those very same problems and issues. So that's kind of the short 1 minute explanation of it.
And I mean, so, we were surveying frontline workers effectively and managers, as I mentioned, and we were interested in their perspective without a doubt. But if you're a CTO or a CIO, why should you be interested in what they think? Which sounds a bit dismissive. I don't mean it like that, but what is the relevance of this study to you potentially if you're at the executive level?
Yeah, for sure. I think this report is sort of like a sanity check on the future of IT in the next couple of years, and it also offers a game plan for how to address the concerns that are voiced from your own employees, the middle managers, and those in the frontline staff. One thing that came through was there's actually optimism for AI and automation from those very workers, and I think you alluded to it as well in the beginning. This doesn't necessarily spell the end of the folks who are working in the service desk. It just it calls out the fact that they're optimistic about changing their roles in leveraging AI in smart ways. And I think if I'm a CTO or a CIO, I want to hear what my department is saying and what they're thinking about in the future, and highlighting the problems that they already are experiencing, as well as have that sort of game plan for addressing it.
Absolutely. Tim, some of the most emphatic responses we got were around proactive IT. I wasn't surprised exactly. I'd say every single Nexthink customer I've spoken to, which is potentially over 100, 200, something like that over the last few years, has always cited going proactive as a core reason for their investment. So I did have a sense that for some time now, it's been a priority. But then a lot of Nexthink customers are what you might call early adopters in this area. What we got in the responses were, in terms of investment and commitment to going proactive across all these different IT departments that we surveyed, 91, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Yes, that's what we're doing. That's where we're putting our resources. And slightly lower, but still very striking. 87% of respondents agreed that without a proactive capability, the future of incident response would be economically unsustainable. So the question for you is, how has the strategy and point of view around proactive IT changed in your time at Nexthink specifically, or going back perhaps to the Hartford even?
Yeah, when we started with Nexthink, it's almost 12 years ago now. We latched on to the term proactive IT very quickly, not almost to the point of naming our team Proactive Services. So we saw the benefit in getting proactive very early. The support for that came from the top. We were told, find a better way, right? It's not sustainable to rely on employees to call the help desk for everything that breaks. And then when I came to Nexthink as an employee 9 years ago, it was still all about analytics, getting data to do the job better. And conversations, I think, over the years have evolved to be more in the terms of proactive IT. We talk about that much more often now. I think it's just and in my travels, I can legitimately say it's a global initiative or conversation rather to get proactive. And the point that I make with people when I talk about it now is a lot of people think proactive IT is finding problems that are existing in the environment and fixing them more quickly. I'm going to be proactive because I can fix it before the employee even has a chance to pick up the phone. And my point that I make to them now is you're removing that removes the dependency on the employee. We need to remove the dependency on the service desk. And the only way to do that is to stop breaking the environment to begin with. Then you start to remove that dependency on the help desk. And I think more and more people nod their head in agreement. The only reason we have a help desk is because we're in the dark. When the lights come on, you lessen the need for a help desk. Think about this, Tom. Can you even imagine a help desk for an iPhone? Where we always compare ourselves to consumer IT. There is no help desk for the iPhone. That environment is stable, predictable, reliable. It's absurd to think that you would need an iPhone for that environment. So I think the evolution away from a help desk, or I often heard at our field offices when I was a customer, the helpless desk. It's just a matter of time. And it also is, to Sean's point, it gives people a whole new pathway for their career. A lot of people are stuck on a treadmill fixing the same things over and over again. And this opens up all kinds of options for a career path.
Nothing fills the heart with dread like a necessary trip to the Genius Bar, Tim. If you do have a malfunctioning Apple device. Okay, so our respondents showed a clear desire for proactive IT, a commitment to it effectively,
Yeah.
which is probably in terms of its prevalence something that's changed since 12 years ago at the Hartford. Sounds like very early adoption to that concept there. But they also kind of highlighted some of the challenges implementing the strategy, and they cited employee resistance to change, for example. Actually, ironically, considering the employees they're presumably referring to here are those in IT, and these respondents were representative of IT, maybe there's less cultural resistance than we might think presently. Nonetheless, there are other obstacles as well. And I mean, you will encounter resistance to change, of course. What advice would you have for IT execs interested in overcoming this or barriers like it?
Yeah, I would agree with the separation of knowledge workers and business employees versus IT employees. The overwhelming feedback when we told our employees about proactive services was, thank God, what took you so long? There's no resistance from employees on proactive IT, but IT people, I think, are a little more perhaps skeptical. Is the data accurate? There's a lot of and absolutely no insult suggested to anybody in IT. But let's face it, talking as an IT person myself, if it's not my idea and you're trying to force something on me, I'm going to be a little resistant to it. So I think that change can happen within IT from the top down, but it also has to happen from the bottom up. And it's most successful when they meet in the middle. So IT execs can give space for their teams to go find a new way. I was given that space. It was done rather forcefully. It was a fix this now kind of a statement from our CEO. To your point, it's not economically sustainable to keep requiring people to call the help desk. And I like to make a point in talking to extremes. Only half of employees call the help desk anyway. And it's economically unsustainable. If you required every employee to call in every issue, your tickets would double. You couldn't possibly handle the volume of calls and the expense if you were to do that. So IT execs, give them space to make it their own idea, set the direction, set the expectation, and then let the teams determine the best path forward. We were told very clearly that it's not sustainable. We found a solution. So here's what I would say to IT execs. You can't ignore the problem and just do business as usual. It's not sustainable for economically not sustainable, but also for your people. And you also can't force a solution to say, here's what we're going to go do, so just go implement it. You've got to be in the middle, support the team to find a solution, set the direction on why, and then let them go find the right solution.
Great. And within the report, I should stipulate that although we were generally interested in attitudes of IT, we also got into some of the sort of technical detail around obstructions to change, around points of why change is accelerating as well. And just to touch upon a couple of these with you, Dina, specifically. For instance, 74% agreed that the growing number of SaaS apps in their organization were making it harder to manage the employee user experience. I wonder if you could shed some light on why specifically that's the case and what solutions you might suggest to it.
Totally agree. The growing number of SaaS apps make it harder for any IT level person to manage because there is fragmentation, there is complexity in the user management, inconsistent interfaces. Once each and every application gets its new update or feature, boom, it's a totally different way to manage. You need to train your IT people to actually troubleshoot and assist the employees in fixing that. Data silos and security challenges that keeps on popping up all the time, and actually choosing the user-friendly apps in gathering employees' feedback and such. So there's plenty of variety. One, even just reading PDFs or browsers, etc. It could be 3, 4, 5 in an organization, which makes it a lot harder when you're trying to manage a complex organization. And the more people are given the liberty to choose which applications they want to use better, even for collaboration and such, it becomes harder to manage in the back end. So solutions for that, I think, is going to be around having SSOs, so getting a single sign-on in the organization to make it easier for access, consolidate the applications to reduce the number of platforms that are being used, and integrate more into the platform, connect the applications together so there is less data silos, and choosing the more user-friendly apps with less interfaces that would be harder. And most importantly is to train and support to help the employees adapt and adopt the new applications that are in place.
Excellent. And obviously, Nexthink launched its own digital adoption platform functionality this very year. And it was something else for that reason, to be quite honest, we wanted to ask our respondents about. And interestingly, many respondents said they anticipated, in terms of the future of EUC more generally, that there will be work app teachers and consultants embedded in companies to train employees. Do you think that progression makes sense? And maybe would you underscore the potential utility of technology to help with that? You can have experts embedded there, but they need a way to reach the users fundamentally at scale, right?
Totally agree, because the idea of having work app teachers or consultants embedded in companies to train the employees constantly on the uprising digital tools and softwares that are in place makes a lot of sense, especially given the complexity and diversity of these applications in the workplace, as we highlighted earlier. So having the embedded digital app trainers or consultants in place makes it easier, and the adoption for the employees to actually be more compliant, more consistent, make it a lot easier into managing the tools effectively, leading to, of course, a higher productivity and better adoption rates. Which we can go back to the point of course, we support that since we do have Adopt, and now we are able to actually do that within Nexthink. So the more we get that, it's not just going to be measuring the digital employee experience, but then also teaching employees to be more productive, to be more actually proactive, and all of the things that we were talking about earlier, even with Tim, right? So to help people adopt more what you're trying to not impose, but trying to influence in using in the workplace from those applications, you need to teach them, and you need to teach them on the go, and it needs to be as quick and as smart as people's clicks and fills are. It's not just going to be a classroom of let me know how do I use that application, or I follow that guide or manual. You really need things on the go that are learning from what you do and actually teaching you what you need to do better.
And would you say anything, maybe illustrate for people who don't know about Adopt, how it helps, right? Like, it's maybe hard to imagine if you haven't seen the tool in action.
Yes, for sure. So it will within Nexthink, you're able to monitor and improve the software adoption by providing the real-time visibility into the usage and tracking of the software. So you're able to really see. Imagine you opening any browser page and you're clicking up on the right to create a document or to send an email, etc. And you're trying to click in a different place, it would suggest to you where to go, how to create the document or send an email or fill in the form that you're trying to do in a much more agile way, let's say. So it helps you gather, and it also gathers the employees' feedback, puts it into data-driven insights, not just recommendations that are made randomly. It's more or less customized for the user to actually adapt to their user experience.
Wonderful. Oriana, I always think of you when I think of that intersection between psychology and technology. And so very interested to hear your perspective on some of the findings we had around optimism, around feeling about the future of work for these professionals that we surveyed. There was, as I said at the top of the discussion, significant optimism about the potentiality of AI in the EUC space. 63% were very optimistic for their organization, 53% very optimistic for the future of their career. And if you just go for quite optimistic for either, it went up to 70s, 80s, 90s, what would you, does that, first of all, does that surprise you that there's a general positive feeling among those who work in IE about the potential impact of AI on what they do and what they'll be able to do? And are you yourself optimistic about that what the implications are for people's career in this space?
I was not terribly surprised, and I also wasn't surprised to hear that so many people were excited to focus on the digital employee experience and really improving the employee experience. Because I think a lot of people who go into IT because they like solving problems, because they do want to create a good experience. Now we just have an entirely new language and set of tools in order to be able to do that. But I don't think any IT person was ever really going into IT thinking, nah, I don't really care about fixing problems, right? Like that's not how you end up in IT. So I think that's part of it, right? Is just this enthusiasm to actually be solving problems rather than being stuck on rote tasks. Because I also have never met anybody who loves the mind-numbingly boring rote tasks that make up so much of what IT does. So I think that's where a lot of the excitement comes from is, can we automate away some of these things like password resets, reboots, things that take up an amazing amount of time and very minimal brain power, but that can really free up IT personnel to be focusing on more interesting problems or more impactful problems. And that's also where the opportunity for growth will be, right? Is being able to, as Tim was mentioning it right at the beginning, focusing on really making improvements rather than just pressing the button every day to turn the computer off and on again. So I think that's one of the places where people are really optimistic.
Great. And yeah, you wouldn't necessarily think that Luddites are naturally drawn to IT either. They're going to be people who embrace technological change according to their very nature, perhaps. But what cautions would you suggest to any IT department looking to expand its use of AI and expand its investment in AI?
Yeah, so I think sort of the bridge between these two ideas is also, who are you asking? Because I do think there are differences once you start to look at different populations, right? So one thing that I've seen in other industry surveys is that management always tends to be slightly more optimistic, and people using the tools are often a little bit more pessimistic because they're encountering the limitations more readily with AI. And so there can also be friction if there's a mismatch between management and workers in terms of what they can actually accomplish with existing tools at the moment, right? There's optimism for the future, and there's, what can these tools do right now? The other part is implementation. So something else that I've seen in other industry research is the importance of change management. And we see that in this survey as well, right? There's a lot of concerns about the difficulty in rolling out new software, in driving adoption of new software. That's one of the reasons why we're focusing on it right now. And some of it has to do with the, I almost want to say backlash, but the negative impact of poor change management in the past, especially in the past few years where we have had this huge surge in SaaS applications where people in many different roles are using a lot of different types of software instead of just one. That has caused trust to be drastically reduced. It's caused friction to increase because people have had such poor experiences with being required to adopt a lot of new technology. So rebuilding that trust requires thoughtful implementation of new technology. And I think that will be really key to enabling new tools and really helping people to get value out of them.
Beautifully expressed as ever, Oriana and everybody. And if you're listening and you're thinking, my goodness, what an amazing survey! Where can I buy a copy? Well, just check the show notes and you can download it for free as ever from Nexthink. We do aim to give real value to the market and to make it as accessible as we can. Please do check out that survey. We're really excited about it. We think there are some really interesting data points to look over with some interesting implications for the space we all work in. So just remains for me, of course, to thank Tim, Dina, Sean, and Oriana, and hope to see you all soon.
Bye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.